Imagine this. You are 22 years old and you decide that you want to become an IS officer, and everyone around you supports you. Your parents are proud, your relatives tell people, बेटा यूपीएससी की तैयारी कर रहा है. You study 12 hours a day, then 14 hours, then 15 hours. You sacrifice birthdays, vacations disappear. Friends move on with their lives. And every year you tell yourself, बस एक और attempt. Now imagine 8 years later, you are standing in a new city looking at your first corporate salary, rupees 18,000 per month. Not after college, not as a fresher, but after giving the best years of your youth to one dream. What would that feel like? Today, I want to tell you a story. But this story is not about UPSC, it's not even about failure. It's about something much deeper. It's about what happens when life refuses to follow the script we wrote for ourselves. And trust me, by the end of this video, you will never look at success and failure the same way again. In India, few exams carry the emotional weight of UPSC. For many families, becoming an IS officer is not just a job, it's respect, security, prestige, a dream that can transform an entire family's future. And every year, lakhs of students enter this journey. If you've ever visited Mukherjee Nagar in Delhi, you know the atmosphere. Tiny rooms, libraries packed till midnight, coaching classes, notes, mock tests, current affairs discussions, and everywhere hope. Lots and lots of hope. Every student believes maybe this year will be my year, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Dreams are powerful, dreams give us direction. Dreams push people beyond their limits. But there is one question that almost nobody asks. What happens if the dream doesn't happen? Think about that. Because while millions prepare for success, very few prepare for failure. And that brings us to a woman from Bareilly whose story has recently touched thousands of people across the country. For 8 years, she lived the UPSC life. 8 years. Just pause for a moment and think about that number. 8 years ago, smartphones looked different. The world looked different. People who started college then are already experienced professionals today. Some are married, some have children, and some have built entire careers. But she was still preparing, still studying, still hoping, still believing. One more attempt, one more year, one more chance. She appeared for multiple UPSC attempts. She also appeared for state civil services examinations. Each result brought hope, then disappointment, then renewed determination, and this cycle continued year after year. Until one day, the attempts were over. No final selection, no IS, no IPS, no government service. The dream that had shaped nearly a decade of her life had quietly come to an end. And then she said something that hit thousands of people emotionally. She said, I gave it everything I had. Not most of it, not some of it, everything. And honestly, that sentence is heartbreaking. Because many failures happen due to lack of effort. But some failures happen despite maximum effort. And those are much harder to accept. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We love success stories. We celebrate toppers. We interview rank holders. We make movies about winners. We create motivational videos about people who finally made it. But we rarely talk about the thousands who worked equally hard and didn't make it. Not because they were lazy, and not because they were incapable, not because they didn't deserve success. Simply because competition is brutal. Think about sports. Thousands want to play for India. Only 11 play. Think about acting. Thousands dream of becoming stars. Only a few become household names. Think about startups. Many founders work incredibly hard, yet many businesses fail. The world often rewards effort, but it does not guarantee rewards for effort. And that is one of the hardest lessons adulthood teaches us. Nobody likes hearing it, yet it remains true. After 8 years of preparation, she faced a question many aspirants secretly fear. What now? What happens after the dream ends? Where do you go? What do you tell yourself? And what do you tell your family? How do you explain 8 years on a resume? And perhaps most importantly, how do you start again? Eventually, she moved to Gurugram. She found an entry level corporate job and salary rupees 18,000 per month. On paper, it sounds like a start, and it is. But reality is more complicated because Gurugram is expensive. Rent costs money, food costs money, transport costs money, everything costs money. And she described it bluntly. A significant part of that disappears into accommodation and commuting. Suddenly, life becomes a daily calculation, not of dreams, but of survival. And that contrast is painful. One day you are imagining government offices and policy making, and the next day you are calculating metro expenses. Life can change that quickly. But here's where this story becomes bigger than one individual. Because this isn't just her story, it's the story of thousands, maybe even lakhs. India is a country powered by aspiration. Parents dream, children dream, students dream, and examinations often become the vehicle for those dreams. There's nothing wrong with ambition. In fact, ambition is beautiful. The problem begins when a single outcome becomes our entire identity. When success has only one ambition, when plan B feels like betrayal. Think about how often students hear statements like, if you focus on anything else, you will get distracted. If you have a backup plan, you won't do your best. Burn all bridges, only one target. Sounds motivational. But is it practical? What if life has different plans? What if the outcome doesn't match the effort? And what if the bridge you burned was the bridge you later needed? These are uncomfortable questions, but they matter a lot. At first glance, this story looks like a story about failure, but I don't think it is. I think it is a story about identity because many people unknowingly attach their entire self worth to one goal. I am successful if I become this. I am valuable if I achieve that. I matter only if I clear this exam. And that creates a dangerous situation. Because if the goal disappears, your identity disappears with it. The real lesson here is that dreams should be part of your life. They should not become your entire life. Read that again mentally. Dreams should be part of your life, not your entire life. You can prepare seriously, you can work hard, you can be fully committed. But at the same time, you can develop skills, build alternatives, learn new things, create options, because options create resilience. And resilience is what helps people survive life's surprises. Now, let me ask you something. Who's most successful? The person who never failed, or the person who failed, stood up, and rebuilt everything from scratch? Most people choose the first answer, but life often rewards the second. Because rebuilding requires courage, starting over requires courage, and accepting reality requires courage. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that a dream you carried for 8 years is over. Many people would break. Many people would refuse to move forward. Many people would remain stuck in regret. But she pressed the restart button. That matters a lot. Because resilience is not glamorous. It doesn't get headlines. It doesn't go viral like success stories. But resilience is often the reason people eventually succeed later in life and in completely unexpected ways. Even if you've never prepared for UPSC, this story is about you. Because everyone has a dream, a target, a plan, a vision for the future. Maybe it's promotion, maybe it's a business, maybe it's IIT, maybe it's NEET. maybe it's a startup, maybe it's something deeply personal. And sometimes life cooperates and sometimes it doesn't. The question is not whether you should dream, you absolutely should. The question is what happens if the dream changes? Can you adapt? Can you restart? Can you reinvent yourself? Can you separate your self worth from a single outcome? These questions matter far more than most people realize because life is long and one result can never define an entire human being. When people hear this woman's story, many immediately focus on the rupees 18,000 salary. But I think that's the wrong thing to focus on. The real story isn't rupees 18,000. The real story is courage. The courage to accept reality, the courage to begin again, the courage to walk away from a dream that didn't happen and still move forward. Because here's something worth remembering: success is not always getting what you wanted. Sometimes success is finding the strength to continue after you didn't. And perhaps that is the lesson India's exam culture needs to hear more often. We teach students how to chase dreams, but do we teach them how to survive disappointments? We celebrate victories, but do we prepare people for detours? Maybe we should. Because life is not a straight line, and sometimes the strongest people are not the ones standing on the winner's podium. Sometimes they are the ones quietly rebuilding their lives when nobody is watching. Think about that. And before you leave, I want to ask you one question. If the dream you've been chasing for years suddenly disappeared tomorrow, would you know who you are without it? That question may be uncomfortable, but the answer might change your life. Thank you so much for watching this video. And if you found this story valuable and meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and insightful stories. Thank you so much.